Alright guys, just got my new PSE Expedite in the mail, and I'm going to set this up. This is a very lightly used bow. It had a few items on here that I took off. Basically got it back to brand new, except the rest is still on there. I'll show you how to do that. It's real easy to do. I just don't want to have to take it off. But anyways, I'm going to show you how, when you get a new bow or an old one that you want to set up the way you want to set it up, how to do it from setup to sighting in.
For the Lord is God, and He created the heavens and earth and put everything in place. I am the Lord, He says, and there is no other. Let all the world look to me for salvation, for I am God, there is no other.
Alright, first thing we do, first step is to set the draw length for your bow. Now, this particular bow has evolved cam system PSE. They're real simple to dial in and get on the right setting. I'm a 29-inch draw, and how you can figure that out is basically one of the methods, at least the one that I use. There's others, but as you measure, as you're standing, measure fingertip to fingertip. Not completely stretched out, but just kind of relaxed a little bit. And if you measure fingertip to fingertip, my measurement on that is about 74, 75 inches, and it comes out to about 28.5. I shoot a 29-inch draw, and because that feels more comfortable to me. It feels, I've shot that for years, and so it just feels more comfortable where I've got my anchor point. But you're going to get within probably about a ½ inch. Definitely within an inch either side. Okay, so as you take that measurement, you'll be pretty close in. You can dial that in pretty close and then make minor adjustments a little bit later. So let's do that to this bow. Alright guys, next you would install the rest. I'm showing you on my other bow because first of all, it's hard to see. It's black on black. This is camo on black, but also the rest that is on this PSE bow is probably not going to be like yours if you don't have a PSE bow with a PSE rest, because it's specifically made for PSE bows, and when you set it on, it fits perfectly, so there's not a whole lot of adjustment. There is a little bit, but not a whole lot. Normally you're going to come, I like to use CAD rests unless I have a specific rest for the specific bow, but the CAD Hunter is a very economical way to go for a rest. And when you set that on there, there's one set screw, or excuse me, the main screw here, and then there's a set screw here. So this thing will, once you get this tightened down, then you tighten this little small one up, and then it will lock it into place. But before you lock it into place, you want to make sure that it's set with just a small little gap. I don't know if you can see that gap at all there. Can't really. But then when it lays flat, it actually is going to lay at a greater than 90-degree angle, just slightly, not very much, and then you'll know you have it in the right position. Okay, so that's pretty much what you're looking for when you install it. So only one set bolt here, and then you got a set screw. Usually that's how other rests work. Now each rest is going to be different, so look at the manual when you install that rest, but that's basically what you're looking for when you install the rest. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is, on this particular bow, is I'm going to move this slide in a little bit more than what it is. It's too far out, in my opinion, because you can see this bow has a yoke system, And if you see this yoke, it's way tilted over, almost touching the cam. Whoever set this bow up originally set that too far out, and I don't like it riding out that far. And it looks like we are good right there. It's about 1/4 inch clearance on the string right here. You can look at that clearance right there. I don't know if you can see that or not. But you want that arrow coming clean through there. Okay, so we have what I did is on this rest I stuck a little bit of felt, which basically is just like Velcro, you know, the stick-on Velcro, only I use the felt side, and then put that on there because this will keep this from, when I'm hunting, it gets really quiet sometimes, and it makes it really quiet when you put that felt in there. So and I did that before. I'm going to set this D-loop because it's going to affect the height of the arrow by maybe 1/16 of an inch, but it doesn't matter. So I'm checking to make this 90 degrees, and you can make a mark here with maybe a different color permanent marker right there. So I got my mark on the bottom side, and I'll go ahead and tie that D-loop in. Okay, here's how you tie the D-loop. This arrow is going to signify the bow string, and this is some nylon cord that'll help you see it a little better. The D-loop, you start out by hanging a little bit off the end there, pull it up over around the back side, of the string, and then back around. I don't know if you can see this, and then through this end here. Then what you're going to do, you can see how that is right there. And let me show you the back side here too. Then you burn this end. Make sure it's frayed a little bit, and then just push it so you mushroom it. Like that. I don't think this is going to work. It's probably too big, but it'll work on this. And then after you mushroom that, you can pull it tight and it will stay in it. Just like, hey, this might work. See there? That's nice and tight. Then, to create the D-loop, so you make the D-loop, come around the front side of the string, and then you come back through the loop like this. Same knot, around, and then back through here. I don't know if you can see that, like this. Then, and there's your D-loop. See how that works? Then you cut this at about 1/4 of an inch, fray it, and then burn it so that it sticks in. And that's your D-loop right there. Needle nose pliers works better to get it started. Stick those in there like that. We can pull that tight. I like mine nice and short. See there? Don't like a whole lot hanging out. That looks pretty good. Now let's pull it back just to get it really tight and cinched in there good. There we go. Got the D-loop in there. See there? Serving in the cable on the rest, you're going to need about 2 feet of serving, and it's kind of going to be the same principle that we use when we tie in the Peep sight. We get about 2 feet or so of serving. Then we get a spudger tool, something like this. This is used for a computer, some kind of tool like this, and then you can separate the string. Alright, when you do this, you want to make sure you got the down cable. Now watch, when you pull back, if you just pull back the string, you'll see which cable is the down cable, which moves down, because you're going to splice this in between the down cable. And I know this is the down cable, but here's how you check it. Just take it and pull it back a little bit, and you'll start seeing which cable goes down, and you can tell which one to tie it into. Okay, so I got my down cable. You can use this spudger tool, and you come about 1/3. Here's my grip, handle grip right here. Okay, come down to about the bottom of your hand here, right along the edge of your hand here, and that's about where you want the cable to go in. So I've got my down cable, and what I'm going to do to give me more room is I'm going to separate these. So I'll pull this one out, and again I'll check with my wrist right about where this edge is. Right here is where you want to tie that in. Take the spudger tool, and I'm going to separate this right in the center, and I'm going to press this a little bit because it's going to make it a whole lot easier. Just to take the tension off, take my spudger tool, and then make sure your spudger tool is not sharp at all. Press this a little bit more. There we go. Make sure your spudger tool is not sharp, or you're going to be in trouble. And I can separate that right there. That's about halfway, I think. Doesn't have to be exactly halfway. But as you separate that, then you're going to take your rest cable and you're going to slide it through the hole you made. Make sure you come from the front side and not the back side of the bow. I'm going to slide that through. And at this point you can remove your spudger. And then you're going to serve right on top of this, like this. And let me show you how to serve that. You take the 2-foot serving that you got, and you're going to slide it. I'll burn this just a little bit because it's too frayed to get it through that hole. Make sure that you do not put that in there hot. And if you don't have a big enough hole next to the string, you can actually use a spudger again, but you should have enough room. So take this and divide it by half. You're serving, you're going to divide this in half and pull it together, pull the strings together, and then you're going to start wrapping just like this. Pull this back through so I got room to work. Make sure my fist, I'm in the right spot where I start the serving, and we're going to wrap this good and snug, just like we would a peep sight. But it's double. Remember, it's doubled up on this part. 3 wraps, 4 wraps, 5 wraps, 6 wraps, 7. Okay, we got our 6, 7 wraps or so. It's nice and tight right here up to this point. Then we're going to do what's called a back wrap. And to do this, you make a loop here, pull it through, and we're going to do about 10 to 12 wraps through the same way. We're wrapping around, and then we're going to take those wraps and transfer them back over to this other side, and then we'll cinch it together. We'll see how this works here in a minute. 2, 3, 4, 9, 10. Let's go 11 for good measure. Now what we do with this string here is we pull it through to the edge here of this one. Try to push this way. We'll get it right next against this one, and then we're going to do the back wrap like this. So as we wrap tight around the string we just did, what it does is we will capture that string right there. Then we don't have to hold it anymore. I can keep that tight. And then we transfer these wraps over to here to tie down or tie in this loop. See how that works? Hopefully you can see that there. There's other videos on YouTube if you want to look on there as well that show you how to do this. But make sure this part stays nice and tight. And once we get all these wraps transferred over, we're going to cinch this down really tight and then burn the end, and it will stay in there really good. And then I'll show you how to do the timing in just a minute. This might be overkill. You could probably go 8 wraps. In fact, this pretty much is overkill. I think we're done with that. There you go. Then you can take this tag in and pull it tight. Might need a pair of pliers to do it. It looks like I can get it with my hand here. And then when you let go, pull it nice and tight. There you go, like that. Now that's in there good and tight. And now we got this tag in that we have to cut and burn. But you want to make sure you don't burn your other strings here. That's why I keep my hand between the string and the fire. That way I don't mess up here. But take this tag in. Make sure it's nice and tight. You can take your pliers or pull it by hand or however you want to do it. Just make sure it's really, really tight. We're in the right spot right there. Just double check. Take my razor. I usually leave about 3/8 of an inch, maybe a little more once it's nice and tight. Now we're going to burn this end. Get my rest thing out of the way. Make sure you don't burn any rubber on the bow either. Make sure that's nice and good. Don't burn your... And let me give you a quick look at this over here. Okay, right there you can see how we've got this through the end there. And then we kind of burned it and mashed it flat there. You see how it kind of burned in. So now this isn't going anywhere. Okay, on this part, take your bow out of the vise. And you can see I've got this pulled all the way tight through. But it's not tied off in any way. So when I pull back, this will slip through to where the timing's supposed to be. And when it hits that timing point, I know that's where I want to cut it and burn it, and then kind of mushroom the end like I did my D-loop. All right. So we're going to pull it all the way through like this, and then make sure that this rest lift up. We'll put the rest actually down all the way, and then it should pull through. All right. So here we go. Right there, the timing is perfect. And when we let down, it'll stay right there. Okay, so that's where we need to tie that in. Okay, so we know that's where it's at. What I'm going to do is I'm going to I'll grab it at about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge, about right there. And then I'm going to pull it, I'm going to hold it so my fingers don't move. And then I'm going to pull it all the way through. Okay? I'll pull it all the way through. And then, as I pull it through, see how it's coming through? I know that I've got to cut it right where my fingers are. that's where I'm going to cut it. Right at the edge of my fingers. Don't cut yourself. And then fray the end a little bit. Right here like this. Fray that end a little bit. And we're going to burn it and mushroom it. And then we'll be good to go. It'll be served in. So let this thing cool off good. Get nice and hard first. Pull it back through. And you'll see it'll stop right there. See there? It stops right there where you served it. Push it right up against the end. And now we're timed perfectly. That thing should, that rest, when it's dropped down, or when that, excuse me, I'm on the wrong side there. When that rest is dropped down, it'll pull up perfectly. Watch this. Boom. See there? Perfectly timed. In order to properly set up where your peep sight is going to go, it can get pretty technical at that point. So if you're not familiar with how to do that, I've got some posts below that'll show you some of the more technical details that you need to think about where you're going to set your peep sight. Also, another thing that you can do is maybe go to a local pro shop, a bow shop, and help them let you figure out where your peep sight is. But I assume that most of you out there that are doing this already are shooting a bow. You already know at your peep sight where it's supposed to be set. Mine is, I always set mine at 5 on any bow I have. I've got 3 bows right now that I own. Mine is 5 and 5/8. I put it from the middle of where the arrow goes all the way to the middle of the peep sight is 5 and 5/8 for me. And so that's where I tie it in, and that's what I'm going to do to show you here. But remember, your distance from the D loop, the middle of the D loop where your knot goes, to wherever your peep sight is going to be a different distance than mine, okay? So just remember that. I'm setting mine up at 5 and 5/8, and you need to figure out where yours is first by looking at some of those links below, or maybe going to a local pro shop. So that's where I'm going to set mine up, and then, so here we go. I'll mark it with the marker right here. This will let me know where it's going to be. I'm going to do it all the way around. You'll see why I do it all the way around, because once I separate this, it'll tell them where it will go. Again, using your spudger tool, non-sharp spudger tool, and I'm going to press this a little bit so that I don't fray this string at all. Much easier to get this thing in here. Alright, there we got our peep in. We're going to put more tension here on the string. Now we're going to do our measure once again here. And after we measure, just to make sure, we're going to pull this back without it tied in to make sure we're right on. And we'll straighten out the string later. That looks about right. Alright guys, to tie in the peep, again, there's more ways than one to skin a cat, and I've got a video listed below that a guy from Archery Talk does a good job. I think I bought some PSE stuff from him before. A really great guy to deal with, but the link is down below. He's got 3 different options for tying peep sights, but the one I like the best seems to really tie it in nice and tight, and so let me show you that one. I'm going to go through it pretty quick, and that list below, he also goes through it as well. on this first one I'm going to show you. But again, get about 2 feet, 2.5 feet, something like that of serving. Bring it up through. I wrap one around the front edge of it. And after you get the front edge on this side with the long piece, then you lay this tag in over. Hold it in place as you begin to wrap. And I'm going to go this way. You're going to want to get this pretty tight as we wrap. So that's 2 times around, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. I don't want this thing coming out, so 6 times wrapped around. Actually, about 5 times you're going to want, because you're going to take this tag in and pull it out after about 4 or 5 wraps. Pull it back to this way, like this, that tag end, and then wrap on the front side of it. And this will be your tag end that ties the bottom nice and tight. You'll burn that end. And that's 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and we'll do 1 more for good measure because I like my peep nice and tight. And once we get it around about 5 times or so, you're good. Then you're going to tie up one side here, and as you tie, you just probably about 5, maybe 6 wraps through there. I should have burned that in because it's too frayed to get it through there, but we'll make it work. Just pull it, make sure it stays tight. If you got clumsy fingers like mine, it's going to be difficult, but that's 2 times through, 3 times. Spread these out a little bit, 4 times, and let's go 1 more. Well, yeah, let's go 1 more. That'll be 5. Sometimes you need 3 hands. But God only gave us 2. Okay, so once it's pretty much good and tight, cinched up in there, now you're going to wrap it around the peep itself to hold it in place a couple of times. So there's, and one thing I want to do before I actually tie this is I want to double check on my measurements here. Perfect. I still see my marks on the string too, so, but I always just want to double check, make sure I don't tie it in and figure out I got it undone and now I got to cut the whole thing apart. So there's 1 wrap around the peep and 2 wraps around the peep, and then you go back up this other side. See if we can get that thing to go in there properly. We're going to do about 5 wraps on the interior. Again, this is a time when you need 3 hands, but God only gave you 2. Make sure that stays up there. This is number 2. Sorry, I'm covering this over. Can't see it, can you? Let me see if I can do it this way. Part of the problem is I don't have my glasses on and I can't see. There's 3. There we go, got my glasses on now. 4, 5. Just kind of evenly space them out. And now we're going to start wrapping around the string itself, or the whole string. Pull this together. That's what, that 4, 5, and now we're going to do, let's see, let's get one more. Then we're going to do the back wrap. Back wrap like we did, if you remember, on setting in our, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 back wraps, and then we just, what we do is make sure this is up tight here, and we are going to transfer those wraps over to here. Take the tag in, tie the tag end in, and now we transfer these wraps over to here. Make sure it's good and tight. This seems to be slipping a little bit, but once we get these wrapped here, I don't think it'll slip as much. So make sure you get it good and tight. Alright, there we go. Now we take the tag in, pull it through. And voila, there we go. That should be good to go right there. And we'll show you how to get the twist out of there. We're just going to take this pair of pliers and make sure this is good and tight. Right there. Don't break it. Don't do what I just did, because if you break it off down here, you got to start over. So make sure you pull it good and tight here. That's kind of sharp, so it's breaking off there. But now we're going to burn these back and just make sure this thing stays in there. Double check our distance again. There we go. I think we're good. Got that tied in. Alright guys, this is a Trophy Ridge 7-pin Hitman. I like to shoot out to long distances here, so that's why I use a 7-pin. And since I'm taking this off, I ordered another one, but I'm taking this off one of my other bows. It's very similar. It's a PSE bow as well, the Evolve 31. So it's going to be pretty close to this one. So when I set it on, my sights are going to be pretty close, I'm assuming. But I'm going to show you how you go through it if they weren't even, if your sights were completely off. So so here's that. Here we go. Putting this on. I'm going to use the last hole on the sight itself because I want to make sure that I can be as accurate as I can with this bow, because I'm going to be shooting long distances. Alright, so we're getting the sight on here. What I do is I snug both sides down and then get it nice and tight. Make sure that's where I want it. There we go, that's probably good and tight right there. Making sure don't strip your things out, just make sure it's good and snug. We got a 10-inch stabilizer here that I use, and then our wrist strap. There we go. Now we got our rough setup for the bow. Yeah, we look like we're good, 90 degrees. But one of the ways before I even paper tune it, I do is with this long, I've got a 10-inch stabilizer here. And what this does is it helps me to be able to get the arrow it's pretty much at a 90-degree angle, like I can tell. We might do some adjustments here on the rest when we paper tune, but you should only have to do fine-tune adjustments by the time you get to the paper tune, because with a long arrow rest, you can sight down the arrow and the string by just holding it straight out like this and sighting down the arrow on the screen. But you see how the stabilizer, well, that's the arrow, stabilizer's down there, down right there, okay? And what you want to do is get that the string, the arrow, and the tip of the stabilizer all in line, okay? So I can tell just by looking down this one that I'm a little bit off. The rest, the arrow rest, needs to go to the left probably about 1/4 of an inch. And so then I'm already way ahead when I start paper tuning this bow. I'll be ahead as far as this arrow shooting bullet holes rather than fleeing right or left. This arrow, I think, would probably go left. Not sure, but that's probably the direction it would go. So on my marks here on the arrow rest, I can move this over to the left 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to do that before I even shoot this thing through the paper. Okay, so I got my horizontal part of the rest loose, and now I can sight and move it around to where I get the arrow perfectly straight in line with the end of the stabilizer. So that's what I'm doing right now, right about there. All right, that's not even 1/4 of an inch that it moved. It's more like a 1/16 or so. So we got that snug. Got this over here. We're going to make sure that one's snug, that it doesn't move. That's the 2 bolts, the horizontal and the vertical on the rest. Sorry, I'm not showing you what I'm doing here. Just making sure those are snug. And now I think we're pretty close to on. And let's shoot this through paper. Okay, so here we go with the paper tune. That is pretty close to what I want. One more step before we go out on the range to make our sighting in a more simplified process, okay? Found a tool to help us get these pins in pretty close proximity to where they need to be, okay? So let me show you how you do that. And you can use an app to do that. An app that's called Uno. It cost about, I think, $8 or $9. It's definitely worth the $8 or $9 that I paid for it, because I've sighted in several bows that I have with it already. And let me show you how that works, okay? When you open up the app, you'll come to the first page, and there's 4 pieces of information that you need to enter into the app to figure out exactly where to place your pins. The first one is arrow speed, so you're going to need a chronograph and shoot an arrow through a chronograph to get a good, precise reading of how fast your arrows are traveling. If you don't have one at home, which most people probably won't, you can go to a bow shop, and if you're nice to them, they'll probably let you shoot your bow through the chronograph that they have down there. And so you'll get the arrow speed. You'll enter in the arrow speed. The second piece of information is a drag. And so when you hit the drag estimator button there that's on the page there, you'll come to a page where you can choose either vanes or feathers. And of course, if you're shooting a compound bow, you're most likely 99% of the time probably going to be using vanes. So then you select that, and when you go back to it, you'll see that there is a measurement that you take from your peep to the sight, and then the fourth piece of information is the peep to arrow. And if you hit on the question button, it'll show you what those two measurements are. The first one is a peep to the sight, so you're measuring that distance all the way from the peep all the way to the edge of your sight out in front of the bow. And then the second one is a peep to arrow. So you'll need to get that measurement. So when you pull your bow back, you're going to have somebody, a second person, have to measure this, because you're not going to be able to hold it at the same time you're taking your measurements. Once you've entered in all that information, then you can hit the sight tape mark at the bottom, or spot on the app at the bottom, and you can set this against your sight tape if you have a movable sight, or you can hit the multi-pin, and this is for fixed sights. I've got a 7-pin sight, so this is the one I use with 7 pins. If you don't have that many, you just use however many you have. If it's 5, you'll just use the first 5 lines. And then when you set this against your bow or against the sight itself, you dial in those pins as close as you can to those lines, and when you go out to the range, you'll be pretty close. You'll have to do some fine-tuning when you get out there, so let's head to the range and we'll fine-tune this and get it much closer. Now that we're out here at the range, I have not shot any arrows through this, so this is just set up basically with the Uno app, and we're going to shoot at about maybe 4 yards to start with, because I don't want to break any arrows. I use a group of 3 arrows to begin to sight this in. The first pin we're going to sight in on this rest is going to be the 20-yard pin, and I'll work out from there. Again, I don't want to break arrows, so I don't start at long distances when you're sighting in. All right, let's do this. All right, so we are low about 4 inches, and to the left about maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches. So what we want to do when you're moving your sight is you want to move it the direction of the arrow. So I'm low and to the left, so I want to move the sight down and then over to the left just a little bit. So we'll do that now. We're pretty close. All right, 20 yards, here we go. It's like we're way high. Looks like we're good up and down. Might need to go left a little bit. Yeah, it looks like we're shooting a little left. Move it left. Just a little bit, not much. And I think that's going to be right on. We'll take one shot and then I'll show you how to dial them in really tight going all the way out to 80 yards. Alright, last 2 shots at 20 yards where the arrows were touching on the bullseye, so I think we're good at 20 yards. 30-yard pin and beyond, we're probably going to have to tweak it a little bit just by adjusting them a little bit. I'm assuming down a little bit because this came off I had that Uno set up. I haven't shot this through a chronograph yet, but I'm sure it's shooting faster because it's supposed to be a faster bow, as well as I'm shooting 64 pounds rather than 60 pounds on this particular bow. So let's shoot this at 30. And here's the trick to really dialing this in tight, is get you a nice firm stance. And this is a Primos shooting stick, a tripod. You could probably use I would assume a camera tripod or something like that, but the principle is the same as shooting a rifle. when you're sighting in, the more stable you can get your position of shooting, the more accurate reading you're going to get as far as where you're going to need to move your sight. So here we go at 30 yards. All right, already got an arrow in there. All right, let's check that one out. All right, as you can see, I've got one touching the bullseye here. The other two are left, so I'm probably going to need to still move that sight again, right to left, because if you're shooting left, you want to move it left. Shooting right, move it right. Shooting high, move it high. Shooting low, move it down. So it's just very simple to remember that when you're sighting in. All right, let's see where our 40-yard pin is. This wind is blowing this bow around quite a bit, so try to pick a day that's not so windy to do this. All right. Okay, so as you can see, that Uno app helped us quite a bit by adjusting these pins first, and all I had to do was adjust that first 20-yard pin and get it dialed in. And I think the rest of them are on, so we're gonna shoot one more at 50, and then or a couple of shots at 50, a couple at 60, a couple at 70, a couple at 80, just to double check, and then we're gonna do some shooting. So you can see how that works from start to finish, from setup to sighting in. That was the title of this video. You can see from those last three shots of 60, 70, and 80, I've still got to do some tweaking on the bottom pins. But we're pretty much tight in, full setup, and sighting in. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Be sure and give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Hit the little reminder bell, and we'll send you reminder notices of when we post some new videos. Thanks for watching. This is the Bowhunting RadNek for Indian Creek Bowhunting Journal. Thanks for watching.